Morning. My name is Rev Kylie Renner, and on behalf of the entire One Spiritual Center community, I want to welcome you here today. Thank you for bringing your love into this space on this rainy Albuquerque morning. For some reason, it's so rare that it rains around here. It feels like we have to comment on it. So it's so beautiful out there this morning. And we have a special celebration today because it is, in fact, our second anniversary of our community. We are officially 2 years old today. Yes. And I've been doing a lot of reflection about these last 2 years and where we've been and where I've been personally in my own healing process, because if you don't know the story, all you need to know is that 2 years ago on this Sunday, I stood up and to say I was a mess is an understatement. And one of my mentors during the time told me that I was going to be okay, and that my community was going to love me back to myself. And that has happened. And so I am truly grateful for all of the love that is in this room and the love that continues to grow as this community. And so I came back across this piece that Mark Ganipo wrote that I end up back at a lot. And it spoke to me of exactly that process of when we can't see it for ourselves, what we can allow others to do for us. And so he calls them the covenants of love. And I'm going to read it to you because wherever you are in that process, whether you remember that you are loved or you're helping others remember that they're loved, I know that we're right where we're supposed to be this morning. So Mark Nebo says it this way. There are 3 covenants that keep us engaged in the work of love. To begin with, when we see something true and beautiful in someone, it is not the work of love to change them or force their growth in our direction. It is the work of love to create conditions in which what is true and beautiful in all we behold can grow and blossom, bringing forth its deepest nature. At the same time, the work of love depends on giving others, especially young people, a sense of safety in the world, nurturing their confidence to lean into life and the unknown, not away from these eternal resources. But still, being human, we constantly slip from integrating our experience to being consumed by our experience. We move almost daily from having our fear, pain, and worry live in us to living within our pain, fear, and worry. So the 3rd covenant of love is to keep each other company when we're drowning in our experience and awash in our feelings, until it can all right size, until our experience and feelings can once again live in us. These covenants exercise the muscle of compassion we call the heart. And so here we are, slipping between our experience being in us and us being in our experience, and that capacity to hold each other, to see the truth for each other when we can't see it is such a gift. And so I'm grateful for each and every one of you and for the space that is created by this community to keep remembering and reminding each other about that love that sits at the center of who we are, and to keep true to that work of love. So thank you. I hope that's the last time I cry this morning. We'll see, though. As I reflect on what it means to really heal, what it means to really learn to trust yourself again. So thank you for being here. Happy 2 years birthday, one. Let us pray. So just taking a deep breath, we allow for ourselves to feel what it feels like to be alive today. In this way, maybe we've never felt alive before. On this day that's never been made before and will never be made again, this day that we find ourselves ready and available for whatever spirit shows up as today. And I just open to trusting the process of transformation, trusting that whatever is in front of us is exactly what is needed for our greater good to come into being. And as I lean into that trust, I recognize truly how powerful it is to remember that there's something bigger going on. Bigger than our small idea of ourselves. And so it is just in recognizing that we're right where we're supposed to be today, that we allow whatever wisdom needs to bubble to the surface within us to do so that we may be clear so that we may be engaged in the work of love, so that we may remember and remind each other of all that is holy and sacred. And so I just breathe into that. I find that place of trust, and I let it be. And so it is.
I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. I am a light, I am a light, I am a light in this world. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. And I shine, and I shine, and I shine so bright. You are a light, you are a light, you are a light in this world. You are a light, you are a light, you are a light in this world. And you shine, and you shine, and you shine so bright. And you shine, and you shine, and you shine so bright. We are a light, we are a light, we are a light in this world. We are a light, we are a light, we are a light in this world. And we shine, and we shine, and we shine so bright. And we shine, and we shine, and we shine so bright.
To prepare for our meditation this morning, I've chosen a poem by Pablo Neruda. It's entitled Keeping Quiet. Now we will count to 12, and we will all keep still for once on the face of the earth. Let's not speak in any language. Let's stop for a second and not move our arms so much. It would be an exotic moment, without rush, without engines. We would all be together in a sudden strangeness. Fishermen in the cold sea would not harm whales, and the man gathering salt would not look at his hurt hands. Those who prepare green wars, wars with gas, wars with fire, victories with no survivors, would put on clean clothes and walk about with their brothers in the shade, doing nothing. What I want should not be confused with total inactivity. Life is what it is about. I want no truck with death. If we were not so single-minded about keeping our lives moving and for once could do nothing, perhaps a huge silence might interrupt this sadness of never understanding ourselves and of threatening ourselves with death. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. So now I'll count up to 12, and you keep quiet, and I will go. And so we're going to count to 12 and allow the meditation to take us where it takes us today.
Our special guest this morning, Rodolfo Gonzalez, is here. Rodolfo.
Thank you.
It's been a few years. We're waiting for John because he is going to play the dynamic drum intro to this next piece. Rodolfo Gonzalez.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So when I was thinking about today and this anniversary, I went back through some of my journals from 2 years ago when everything it felt like I had built over the last 10 years had crumbled right there in front of me. And I had written in my journal something that I know at the time really, really, really pissed me off. But what I had written was, everything is falling apart exactly according to plan. And in the midst of our own transformation, I think it's sometimes really hard to remember that the things that feel like they're falling apart are actually falling apart, partly because there's this greater plan that is in action, that we have to make room for something else to happen. And in the midst of it, it's really hard to see that. Because in our own pain and when we get consumed by the experience, we forget that what is being done is that there's room for expansion happening. And so as a minister, it's really interesting because basically it feels like I've signed up to do my transformation in public. I don't get to hide it. And so when I'm in the midst of my own stuff, I just have to go through it. And I have to go through it in a way that is committed to something more. And I cannot tell you that these last 2 years have been easy, but what I do recognize is that what is being revealed is exactly where and what I need. Like the Spirit really did know how to fall apart exactly according to plan, even though at the time it didn't feel that way. So there's this great Rumi poem that speaks about this. And so how Rumi puts it is that this being a human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So we find ourselves in this guest house experience, right, as these human beings that are transforming, needing to figure out how do we make stuff welcome, especially the stuff we don't want to make welcome, right? Like, how do we really make it welcome so that we can be present to it, so we can transform it? Because what I recognize is that if we do not make it welcome, if we try and brush it under the carpet, if we try and ignore it, if we try to pretend it's not there and pray it away, that it's always still going to be there, that we lose the power to actually transform it if we don't actually make it welcome, if we don't treat it as a guest that is an honored guest. And this is a hard thing, right, from the New Thought perspective, and partially what my transformation has been about over the last few years is really confronting the lies that I was taught in my New Thought training, because there was all of this training about how to keep those bad things, those things that I didn't want to experience, out of my life. How I could pretend them away, how I could pray them out of existence. And I just don't think that's what this is all about. I don't think that actually honors this full human experience. It doesn't treat it as a wholeness. It says that some things are outside of the realm of God's love. It picks and chooses the things that make us feel comfortable as the things that we are willing to experience, and all the rest of it, we're just supposed to figure out how to get to pretend that it doesn't exist. And we were judged, or I was judged by how well I did that, how successful I was, by how well I could pretend that there wasn't a crowd of sorrows, that there wasn't a depression, or some momentary awareness that came as an unexpected visitor. And so the beauty of this kind of recognition that all of it is God, like all of it, like one, right? It's here. I was like, where is it? Forgot which side it was. But if it's all one, if it's all really one, then everything is a guest. It isn't something that we needed to hide from. It's not something we need to push away. That in fact, we can recognize that everything has been sent as a guide from beyond, that all of it is falling apart exactly according to plan. Every single piece of our experience is part of it. And so what I know to be true about this is that there's an opportunity for us to start to treat our experience not as the things that we wish wouldn't happen or the things we wish that would go away, but this welcoming that says this is a guest from the one, whatever it is, whatever this experience is. And it doesn't mean that it has to stay forever. I love the saying that says that we're supposed to treat people as guests for 2 days, and on the third day, give them a hoe. Right? I like it. Well, it's better than the one that talks about guests starting to smell like fish, right? I can't even remember it, but it's basically like if guests say after 3 days they start to smell bad like fish. But this idea that like we can put the guest to work in our life, like we can put our sorrow to work, we can put our pain to work, we could put our fear to work. We could put our disappointment to work. So there's a story about a small town that had this tradition that whomever came to their door was treated as God's guests. And the idea was anyone who came through the town was told when they knocked on the door of any house, if they said, "I am God's guest," that they were invited in and fed and given a place to sleep. No questions asked. And I love that kind of imagery because what it reminds me of is this kind of hospitality we can have with all of our human experience, that we can really welcome it in, that we can say, you are God's guest in my life. I'm going to recognize you as that. I may not know how to welcome you, but I am willing to make room for you so that I may learn, so that I may grow, so that I may transform. So there's this cathedral in Milan that has these beautiful inscriptions under their arches, and there's 3 different sayings, and the first one says, "All that which pleases is but for a moment." And then you turn around, and the other one says, all that which troubles is but for a moment. And the third one said, "Only that is important, which is eternal, stays." And I think that that's the piece to remember in this guest house experience we're having, that truly in the impermanence of it, that which is troubling us is only for a moment, and that which delights us is only for a moment, and this too shall pass. So years ago, I had a teacher teaching on that verse, that this too shall pass. And I was really struck by the emphasis that it's not just like this too shall pass that's used when we're going through something difficult, like you'll get to the other side, but like that this too shall pass even about the things that delight us. That this human experience is about getting comfortable with the fact that things pass, right? That we are passing through, and that we move between experiences, and somehow we have to get okay with this because it's just what is. And in the eternalness of it, we have to also get in touch with that which doesn't change. And so I am so grateful for having had 20 years or more of grounding in my life before I had this difficult experience 2 years ago of recognizing my own voice in my own spiritual voice, because what I recognize is that it is so necessary when going through those times when we really want to say, this too shall pass, that we are able to find that which is eternal in us. And it's in us. It just is us. And we have access to it, but so often we're like sticking our fingers in our ears saying, I can't hear you. Like we're saying, wah, 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 wah. Like I'm going to get so focused on the storm. I start worshiping the storm, as Mark Nepo says, that I forget that I'm just intended to experience the storm. And so we have this capacity as these beings that are transforming to really access that which is eternal in us, so that we may weather the fact that things change, that things move, that this thing called life it takes guts. I love that I got to read some more of our beloved Annie's notes this week, because she was so good at leaving them for us. And one of her big lessons was this being human thing. Wow, it takes guts, guys. Like it takes guts to have signed up to be here. It's not easy. It's not easy to be in the presence of the fact that things change that we don't want to change, and things don't change that we want to change. And that it's not about controlling it, and it's not about making it be different. It's about being in the presence of something bigger in the midst of it all. And so I think that sometimes we're just like trying too hard, right? We're just trying too hard, and we're efforting and we're pushing and we're trying to manipulate and control, when that's not what we're really supposed to be here to do. That we're actually here to listen in a deeper way. And what gets to be revealed is so much bigger, especially when we let go of our idea that we have to force it to be in the other way. So there's a cute story about a farmer who was out in his field one day, and he saw two clouds, and they spelled out perfectly the letters P and C. And he didn't immediately go out and buy a new computer, but he couldn't get this image out of his mind. And so he was like, what did God want from me? Does God want me to be politically correct? Does he, clearly it seemed like the heavens were giving him a new direction in his life. And he determined that what it meant was that he was intended to go preach Christ. And so the guy sold his farm. He auctioned off the cows. He enrolled in a faraway Bible college and got a degree in theology to hang on his wall. And he started to preach Christ like the clouds told him to. But within 10 minutes, it was really clear that the cows that he used to own were better at preaching Christ than this guy. And he was just terrible. And people were going out in the parking lot shaking their heads, and those who put offerings in the collection plate felt like they were being fleeced, to torture the metaphor a little bit. It was really just really, really bad. And so this ex-farmer, soon-to-be ex-preacher, was baffled and discouraged and said, I don't understand it. I was given this message. The Lord showed me these letters, PC, and I thought he was telling me to preach Christ, but things just aren't working out. And his friend told him, swallowing hard, delivering this news, well, are you sure that it was preach Christ? Because I'm pretty sure God was trying to tell you to plant corn or cucumbers or cauliflower, because one thing is for sure, the P in your PC does not stand for preach. And so this makes me laugh, but it also reminds me that sometimes we're like I said, we're just trying too hard, right? We think we have to go in some other direction. We think we have to sell the farm, that the message is to go in this other direction, when really sometimes the message is to be right where we are and plant corn. To be in the midst of what we're actually asked to do, and to listen to that, though, takes more courage than we give ourselves credit for, because it's a lot easier to skip over the surface of things, to not actually be transformed to not actually make things guests in our lives, to push them away, to pretend that we are not being asked to be moved or changed. And so when we really welcome this idea that everything is falling apart exactly according to plan, and that we are being given exactly everything we need to be transformed, and that we will be supported in it, then there's a way in which we then become more deeply in touch with our wholeness. Because there's things that we have to push away. And I believe that this is the inherent power of New Thought philosophy, is like actually coming from the place that remembers that we're whole. That no matter what it is that's going on, that we are still in the midst of a love that is so much bigger than we could have ever imagined. And that it is holding us and guiding us and supporting our whole experience, not just part of it. And so I realized over the last few years that there are pieces of what I had bought into that I just don't believe anymore. And that has been such a gift, because what I recognize is that those pieces that I had bought into were actually keeping me from doing some deeper transformation, from actually looking at the parts of my wholeness that I had pushed aside, thinking that they were outside of that experience I wanted to be having. And so making deep friends with the wholeness has been tremendously valuable for this deeper transformation that continues to happen as me. And so I have to say this out loud, because I've been trying to figure out how to articulate it. But one of the things that I have to say is that I am actually, this is difficult. Okay, so this is the framework, right? So New Thought philosophy is generally about this idea of healing. It started out as the idea that we need to bring our minds into the healing of our bodies, because medicine at the time had taken everything away from that. But what I realized is that for the 25 years that I had taught, or I had been reading and studying, that I had bought into the idea that had been projected was that somehow, like, our health or our well-being or what our lives look like meant something about our connection with God. That if we were healed, then we were closer to God. If we were not, if we were experiencing pain or suffering or sorrow, that we were outside of that. And I have to tell you, I am ashamed that I ever freaking preach that stuff. I am ashamed, because what I know is that is not true. That our healing is not dependent on whether we are close to God or not. That has nothing to do with it. We are close to God because that is who we are. That is our wholeness. There is nothing that can stop it. No human experience that we need to determine is in the way of that. And that's just being able to articulate that to you all today without knowing I'm going to be burned at the stake is healing for me. Right? Being able to say that, and being able to say that I know you are whole no matter what you are experiencing. That is the truth of who you are. It's what you came here to be. There is no experience you could be having, nothing you could have done that puts you outside of the love of the one that sent you here. And just because you're in something you would like to pass, and just because you're in the midst of the impermanence of life, does not mean that your connection is broken in any way. Doesn't mean you need to try harder, pray better, do something different, go to one more lecture, read one more book. That's not how this works. You were born qualified. And so I just want, from the depth of my heart, I want to apologize for in any way over the last 10 years that I've been regularly preaching in Albuquerque that I ever said anything that made anyone feel less than whole because of their experience. Because what I know is that is simply not true, that you are whole, that you are God's guest here, and that everything in your life is God's guest, and that the love of the one is big enough to hold it all. Not just some of it, not just the stuff that looks pretty, not just the stuff we want to put on a bumper sticker, but like all of it. And so I'm in deep gratitude this morning for the opportunity just to remember that, and to remember that together, because just remembering that will get us through so much. And it will guide us deeper in our transformation, and it will allow us to help support each other in it as well. Because if we're drowning in our experience, just knowing that we're not alone in that, and that it doesn't mean that we're anything less than, and that it doesn't mean we are separate from God. We've got to get closer. That's where the healing really happens. It's really honoring that. So. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you for all the love. And here we go. It just goes deeper. And I'm grateful for that. For being reminded not only of who I am, but whose I am. So I'm going to ask the band to come up as we anchor in prayer and just take this opportunity to breathe into our wholeness. And so if there's some part of your life that you've been trying to push away, thinking that it's less than, that it makes you broken in any way, I'm just going to invite you to see if handing it over to prayer can do something. So please join me as we sing.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free.
And so our prayer of love today is a prayer of remembering who we are and whose we are, remembering what we are here to do and to be, remembering a wholeness that is so much bigger and as we allow ourselves to remember, I just recognize that we can call back all of the places in our lives that we have held outside of the love of the one. And we can pour that love all over it. Because I recognize that there is nothing outside of the one. And it is in that inherent wholeness that we live and move and have our beings, that we have this entire experience called being a human. This whole experience called being alive. And I just recognize that we are alive and aware and awake and available to the healing that is happening because we are willing to embrace all of it. And so we honor that everything is falling apart exactly according to plan, that we are being cleared out. of anything that no longer serves us, so that we may reveal more of who we've come here to be. And that clearing out is a sacred process that we participate in because we are willing to embrace it all. And in the midst of it, we learn to trust that which is eternal in us. That love that is bigger, that wisdom that is clearer. And we just allow ourselves to be transformed by our own wholeness. Transformed by our capacity to recognize truly that all of it is God. So I honor all of the guests in our lives, all of the things that we can see as messengers from the beyond at this moment, and all the things that we can yet see. And I just know that Spirit will continue to guide us into deeper clarity as we accept the fullness of our experience and the courageous choice to always know that it is the right time to do the right thing. Always. And so I let Spirit guide. I know that it is good. And I let it be. And so it is.
Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, and sets us free. Our prayer of love lifts us high. It heals us, sustains us, sets us free. Once again, young Rodolfo Gonzalez.
Young I was. One, two, three, four. Thank you.
That's Rodolfo Gonzalez.
Do you need that? Now's the time when we move into the sharing of our tithes and offerings. I invite you to take whatever it is you brought to share with this community today and hold it over your heart. And I invite you to give it a silent blessing, whatever that might be for you today. Maybe there's something in you that is calling for you to recognize it as part of your wholeness. And maybe you're willing to entertain the idea that it's something that you've been trying to push away is, in fact, something that could be treated as an honored guest. Whatever that is, I just recognize that the wholeness that you are, the love that you are, the peace and wisdom that you are, has within it, right here and now, absolutely everything it needs. That there's nothing lacking, nothing missing, nothing that has gone wrong. And so we just allow for that deep recognition to allow ourselves to feel more fully present as the wholeness that we are, so that we may remember, so that we may be wise, so that we may be free, and so that all beings may be free. All beings may be love. All may be wise. And we just let go into that. And I invite you to sing with me as our ushers come through the aisles.
Birds flying high, well, you know how I feel. Sun up in the sky, well, you know how I feel. Breezes drifting by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Fish in the sea, well, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Blossom on a tree, well, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean. Butterflies all having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when day is done, that is what I mean. This old world is a new world and a bold world for me, and I'm feeling. Stars when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, well, you know how I feel. Freedom is mine, and I know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling.
So please join me as we bless all that has been offered into this space. As we bless this community, as we enter into our next year, as we deeply commit to the covenants of love, of remembering why we are here, and reminding one another. I just recognize that Spirit knows what it is doing, that it knows exactly how to fall apart and come back together. It knows how to reveal our wholeness in ways that we never imagined possible before. And so we just let that wholeness be supported by something so much bigger and deeper through our willingness to make it all a guest in our experience. And I just know that it is good. I know that it is one, and I let it be. So it is. So coming up in March, we have our regularly scheduled volunteer opportunities. Brain dead, stopped working. The third Saturday, we will be cooking for Community of Hope, and then the fourth Saturday, we will be at Roadrunner Food Bank. Everyone is welcome to those, and if you need more information, you can get that at the info table. Also, finally, I had a second and a half to make, I think, a fairly nifty poster. I say if I don't say so myself. So this is a poster for our concert coming up. So excited and grateful for the Outpost letting this happen March 12th, right here, 7:30 p.m. It's going to be these amazing guys, joined by Carla Terwilliger, Tracy Whitney, Patty Littlefield, Arlen Asher, Lee Taylor, and Paul Gonzalez. It's going to be a great night. You do not want to miss it. Tickets are available at Outpost Space or so I have my iPad here today if anyone wants to do that today, or if you give me cash, I can get your tickets purchased as well. They are $20 and $15 if you are a member of the Outpost. And so just really grateful for the Outpost helping us get these guys out into our community in a different way, because what we do here on Sundays is special. So I am excited about that. So if you have someone you want to share that with, there's posters available over at the info table. Please share far and wide. We'd love to sell out. I think we can. I see no reason why we can't. So thank you for being here. Happy birthday, everyone, and let us sing.
One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People get ready, there's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. All you need is faith, that diesel humming. You don't need no tickets, you just thank the Lord. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. People get ready for the train to Jordan, picking up passengers from coast to coast. Faith is the key, open the doors and board 'em. There's room for all that love the most. One love, one heart. Let's get together and feel alright. One love, one heart. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright. Let's give thanks to the Lord and we can feel alright.
And we have one last blessing to sing to one another.
Go forth and walk in beauty and know that we are one.
Who plays the melody? You play the melody.